So this is a place called Carrowmore. And Carrowmore is, in my experience of being there, like a giant cemetery, but an ancient one. So when I got there, there's these mounds. So this is the largest mound you see in this picture, but there's lots of mounds, lots and lots and lots of them. So when I got there, it was quite busy spirit wise. There were lots of people. And that's, they were off doing something. So I was accessing a time when there was a bunch of people. So as I was just sort of watching there, a young couple passed by and they were having a bit of an argument because they had to go visit her clan's mound, but then they also had to go visit his clan's mound, and they were deciding which to do first. So I was kind of listening to them and thinking, oh, okay. And then a kind of older, sort of wise woman came up and saw me and said, welcome. I noticed that you're not actually, you're not dead. And I said, no, no. So where are you from? And I said, well, I'm, from your future. And she said, oh, well, that's nice. Why have you come? And so I said, well, I just am curious about this place and what it was used for. And she said, well, it's quite busy because we're in between the summer solstice and Lughnasa. And we're on the occasion of a full moon. And so the full moon between summer solstice and Lughnasa is quite a popular time because everyone comes to bring and make offerings before we go into the autumn and the winter, when no one's going to come here. So this is the time they come to visit the ancestors. And I said, well, what is that visit like? And she said, well, they bring offerings, but mostly it's to share stories. And I loved that. That
I
the
love that
reason they
as
were going
well.
to these places was to share stories and to remember. Now she said, look, there at the times of Beltaine and Samhain, there are specially trained shaman that are here. So at Beltaine is when everyone's bringing their bones or their cremated remains to inter them, and there's a shaman that helps. So that's about delivering your message and your prayers up to the spirit. And then Samhain is when the shamans are there to listen to the messages that are coming from the spirits. And they're making note about, right, we need to get to that family and remind them of, or they've, requests from spirit. So I thought that was interesting that, we look at graveyards as, oh, scary, don't go there, sad. But how interesting that in this culture, twice a year, you went to send your prayers up and to receive the prayers coming down. I think that would be
That it's
beautiful.
a two-way communication. And what you just shared with me about sharing stories, again, reminds me of the beautiful celebration of life we held for my mother. And I opened up to everyone if they wanted to share any stories or memories about my mother. And actually, it was so beautiful, John Paul, because I heard hilarious stories about my mother that I didn't know, and it made everyone laugh. And you're right, even going to a cemetery shouldn't be a sad thing. It should be a time when you sit and reflect on the beautiful times in physical form that you've shared with that person, and maybe get some insights in different ways as well. So there are rituals that we can do to keep that alive, as I will be doing today.
Well, one of the ceremonies at this place was there was like a caretaker family, like there would be at any cemetery. And the caretaker and his family were supplying people with offerings if they didn't have things. So if you didn't have whatever flowers or something, they had them for you. And one of the things was they had quartz, white quartz for you. So this mound that you're seeing behind me has a whole part that's just all white quartz. It's quite extraordinary, the amount of white quartz. And that's a common feature here, is that these mounds are filled with white quartz. So she said, the spirit that was guiding me around said, oh, well, come here. So we walked over to see this family, and the mother and father were giving a piece of white quartz to the children. So a small piece, of white quartz, and then some clay. And they put the white quartz in the middle of the clay, and then they rolled it in their hands to make a ball. And they rolled it and made a ball. While they told stories of the deceased person. So they were putting the memory and all the thoughts and the conversation into the quartz through the clay into these balls, and then the balls were placed in the mounds.
Which goes back to the notion that crystals hold memory and are, we talk about RAM and memory on computers and the crystals that hold the memory, but in your computer. But again, in the outer world, it's crystals. When you hold a crystal, you should be able to gain some of the wisdom and memory that's placed in that crystal, that you can either place or that crystal has embodied from Gaia, from Earth, from where it's been bathed in for thousands of years. So yes, totally get that. And actually in one of my meditations, I often imagine myself in a huge crystal obelisk. To embody that wisdom, and also for clearing and for nourishment.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I love that.